Hello, welcome to my observations. This is part 2 of a little series we're doing called At Peace. Today we're going to talk about peace of mind and the one opponent that you've got to beat in life. Two of the greatest titles that I ever had in my life were that of father and husband. And I guess when you look back at it, you learn a lot about different people in history, and I think no one set a finer example of being a great husband and a great father than Joseph, the earthly father of Jesus. A lot of times I think he's overlooked, and he set an absolute high standard in taking care of his family. I think with a mix of that and also the fact that I had a father who also believed in personal responsibility, I had a good foundation. I always believed and I always wanted to make sure that I took care of my family, even upon my death. With that in mind, I want to let you know how important it is to make sure that you look at your financial situation. And there's nothing sadder in a lot of ways than if a child loses a parent. But then if the surviving parent has to then sell the house and move, and that child now, his whole house, everything in his life is uprooted. So please, if you get one thing out of these videos, look into what will happen under different scenarios. Should your life end suddenly in a tragic accident, or should you get sick? I can give you two quick scenarios for me. First of all, I left my job. I was able to retire. But when I left my job, I lost some life insurance that I had through my employer, a pretty substantial amount. But I also had private life insurance. But without that, I wouldn't have much life insurance at all. So if I would have depended on what I had for work, right now, I wouldn't have peace of mind. So you got to make sure that under different scenarios that you're covered. And you also have to look at, if you lose your job, what kind of income will you have? I was with my employer for 25 years and I had a pension, so I'm able to draw a monthly pension check. However, I know a lot of people don't have that. I was very lucky and very fortunate. If I had to live just on my Social Security disability every month, it would be a tough row to hoe. So, you might want to call that little duck up from Aflac and find out about some different options that you have, because you don't know. Don't give me the scenario that it's expensive and stuff, because I did it. I wasn't making $1 million a year. I also had my son, going through parochial school, which was, an extra payment every month. In addition to that, we were putting money in his college fund. So we did it because they were priorities, and we did it because, I learned how to sacrifice. I didn't drive new cars. I didn't have the biggest house. I wasn't going on vacations all the time. But now that I'm in this situation that I'm in, I am so at peace with my mind, knowing that my wife and son are going to be taken care of, that they can stay in the house, that my son can finish college. So, look at your situation, run through some different scenarios, educate yourself. You could be in perfect health. That doesn't mean you won't have a tragic accident, and I hope to God you don't. But be prepared. You want to take care of your family, and that goes for a husband and a wife, because today's world, there's a lot of wives that are working, and if the husband all of a sudden doesn't have that salary coming in, you got to ask yourself, what will I get a month if I leave my job early because I'm sick, and your wife your spouse, the surviving spouse, will get Social Security only if your children are under 18. Like my wife will not get any Social Security benefit when I pass away until she's 59 and a half. You know, that's my Social Security that I paid in. So, you know, but luckily she will have some pension money. She will have life insurance money, and we already set up a plan to take, when that money does come, it's going to go into an investment fund. You know, also, you know, my son's college, you know, we're pretty well funded for that. So I have great peace of mind when it comes to my family after I pass away. In addition to that, you also need to sit down with your spouse and discuss, you know, just let her know that it's all, that you want her to move on. You know, for me, it's sitting down with Ann and telling her that, you know, if the house is too much work, you know, it's just a house. It was the three of us plus our animals that made it a home. And that if she, you know, decides to downsize in the future, that don't keep the house because, you know, it was Randy's house. And to be happy with whatever, you know, she wants. If, you know, she finds someone that, you know, she wants to marry down the road, I told her, you go for it. And, of course, she said no, but I said, you don't know what's going to happen. It's till death do us part, and she's been a fabulous wife. So I think it's important to sit down and talk about that stuff. And, you know, not necessarily wait for you to be sick because you don't know, but just, you know, discuss it. And it's tough. It's a hard thing. I know some people won't want to discuss it, but at least from the financial aspect, please sit down and know where you're at and try to take care of your family. You know, the next aspect for peace of mind after that was looking at yourself and trying to be the best self that you can be. And maybe going through the 10 Commandments and read them and say, you know what, I did this, I did that. You know, I'm not saying like if you're Catholic, you know, I certainly you know, recommend going to confession. It's been helpful for me, although I don't do it as often as I should, but at least try to improve in certain areas. I learned a lot on the importance of forgiveness and being more forgiving. I held grudges. Pennsylvania Dutch, it's a family tradition. And, you know, when I got sick, I let all that go. I started talking to people again that I really didn't communicate with much in the past several years for various reasons. And, you know, I looked past all that and said none of us are perfect, but, you know, most of us have a good side. So, you know, work on the jealousy. Work on, you know, the anxiety and the animosity that you might have around certain people. Work on forgiveness. And above all, forgive yourself. So many people can't forgive themselves for things that they did. If God is willing to forgive you, and He is, then you need to be willing to forgive yourself. So work on those areas. That will give you great peace of mind, and it gives me peace of mind. I am a much better person because of cancer. As we talked about yesterday with that mind, body, spirit, you know, spiritually in my mind, I'm better. You know, if I could get that body back, oh baby, I mean, I'd be kicking it out. But you know, maybe we'll get a miracle. And if not, you know, I'll be prepared mentally. I'll be prepared spiritually, and we go from there. The next topic is your major opponent in life. And really, it comes down to, I think most of us want to be good people. We want to have a clear conscience. And but there's a lot of good versus evil in the world. There's the devil, if you believe that. But I think most of us can at least believe that there's evil, that even within us, there's evil. We can be mean. We can be nasty. We've all done it. We're all human. you got to beat that. You got to defeat the devil. You got to defeat evil. You know, it comes in many forms. It can be forgiveness. It can be lack of forgiveness, I should say. A lot of it is jealousy. You look at the famous, you know, keeping up with the Joneses. So many people try to keep up with the Joneses. And there's a guy, two neighbors, and one guy gets a pool in ground, the other guy gets an in-ground pool with waterfalls. One guy goes out and buys a camper. Next guy goes out and buys a motorhome. Well, eventually old Jonesy, he goes bankrupt, right? But he finds in his bankruptcy, he becomes humble. He lets go of the ego, which is a great word, and I want to thank my buddy Bruce for kind of introducing me to ego and talking about letting go of your ego. And so Jonesy, he moves in a small apartment, and all of a sudden he's taking public transportation because he can't afford a vehicle. But 2 or 3 days a week, he's going down to the homeless shelter and helping people out. And in the final analysis, the neighbor that beat the Joneses, he's working on beating the Smiths now, and they both die on the same day. Who really won? The guy with all the stuff that didn't appreciate any of it because all he cared about was getting more and more, or Jones, who discovered that the importance of helping others and the importance of being a good person, and having peace of mind and having spiritual peace. Putting those two together, who is the final victor? We'll figure that out at the end. But I think it really comes down to happiness. I always said this long before I had cancer, that happiness is a choice. You can choose to be happy for what you have, or you can choose not to be happy for what you don't have. And I'm not saying that you don't go out and enjoy yourself, but you take a guy that goes out and buys a boat because he thinks it's going to make him happy. He runs that for a while, then he goes out and buys a motorcycle. Does that for a while. He's still searching for happiness. And it's there. He just has to choose to find it. He has to have gratitude for what he does have and enjoy what he does have. So, at the end of the day, there's really only one opponent that you need to beat. And you can look at it one of two ways. You can look at it maybe it's the devil, maybe it's evil. You don't want that. You don't want that in your life. You want to be cleansed of that. But really, it's you. You're your biggest opponent. If you can be the person that you really want to be, then chances are you're going to have victory. And that victory is going to be in the form of going to heaven, of having eternal life. Because, a guy can go out and win 4 Super Bowls and have, 4 trophies and be the world heavyweight champion, in boxing or whatever. But that doesn't mean anything once you pass on. If you don't have God's grace, what good is it? Yeah, I was a world champion. You can brag about that for 50, 60 years, but if you reach God's kingdom, that's eternity. That's forever. That's thousands upon thousands of years, and nobody cares up there whether or not you were the world champ because it doesn't matter. So, I remember one time going to a CYO function. It was a seminar, and the man that was speaking was incredible. And he talked a lot about how, as a CYO coach, we need to instill Christ. And I followed that, and I tried to do that, when I was coaching, and I really enjoyed it. And but at the end of this speech, he told us to close our eyes, and he started to describe a trophy. And he talked about it, and I wish I would remember exactly how he described it, but he talked about it like a man with like a pose for victory. And it was like on a slab of marble or wood and surrounded by metal, and he described his trophy. So you're kind of thinking, you get an idea of like